All right, family and friends of Oakland Cemetery, we are here at section 4. If you're familiar with our past videos, this is actually the infant section. And what we did in the process of mapping our cemetery and trying to locate temporary markers or gravestones themselves, we used our probing tool, which you may have seen in our previous videos. It's basically a metal tool that we probed in the ground to find buried stones. And it so happened that we also found a lot of temporary markers, which are basically metal markers that are put in place prior to an actual stone being here. Now, for one reason or another, temporary markers were left in place and there was never a stone put in after the fact, which is not a problem. So what our goal was is that we're going to identify the temporary marker, at least read the name, log it into, we have 1, video documentation, 2, we're going to use Find a Grave to do a photo documentation and GPS location of this actual marker in the event it gets covered again. And then what you're going to see here in the next couple steps, we already have the grass plug basically cut away. We're going to remove the grass plug, identify the marker, the name in place, and then we'll attempt to raise that marker. And then once that marker is raised, we'll get to a portion where we're going to eventually do a close-up cleaning of the marker and its final placement. The final placement, our goal today is to have it probably about level 2 or about an inch below the ground for 2 reasons. One, you have visibility of the marker, and the second reason is because of the lawn care maintenance. Sometimes if you have too many of these things that are above the ground or offset, it can make lawn care a challenge, and at the same time it also minimizes the threat of the marker being damaged when mowing equipment's coming through. Alright, so I'm going to get to work and you can follow along. Oh, another thing, when we found these temporary markers, we had this PVC pipe here to identify it. So maybe the last video you've seen of us out here was a couple months ago. So in the event that grass grows over it, rain comes down, dirt covers it, we had this temporary marker in place just to identify where that temporary marker was. So this PVC pipe was in place for the temporary marker location, which we'll have removed. All right, so here we go. All right, folks, so the temporary marker that we have, we've seen several different types that are out here. Some of them are a multi-plate, so there's a bottom plate and a top plate, and sandwiched in between are all the letters, basically the identifier for that marker. The one that we have here is almost like a flat metal plate, and metal letters are pressed into it and slipped into the actual metal plate itself. But when you see the close-up, you'll know what we're talking about. The reason why this is important, we're gonna read the marker for you here as we see it, because if we remove it, there's a chance that if there's any damage, the letters could get scrambled, almost like an alphabet soup, and you don't want to do that. So you want to identify it as well as you can, and then we'll go from there. So seems like a pretty intact marker. The individual's name, this is just a general cleaning. It appears to be Stephen Martin. And what we can see is that there appears to be a date, the date of death is 1955. So what we're going to do, we have this marker, so it's been somewhat identified. We're going to shave some of this off and then sink the marker about an inch below the ground. So I'm going to get to that right now.
No problem with grass growing out here, is it?
Not at all. Yeah, this is pretty strong too.
Yeah.
Pretty strong. All right, folks. So on the first marker right here from Mr. Stephen Martin, basically we raised it, shaved about 1 or 2 inches off the plug of grass that we had. Now we've reset the marker into the ground, and one side might look a little higher than the other because we're actually in an area where it contours here in the cemetery. In fact, a lot of the area that we have here contours and it goes in waves. And the next thing you're going to see is that we're going to have a close-up of Mr. Martin's marker, and we'll get some cleaning done. So we'll see you in the next cut. All right, folks, we are back at Mr. Martin's site. Now, you can barely read it right now, so we're going to do some general cleaning. I'm going to get to work, and you should see some of these letters kind of pop out, and then we're going to document it as well as we can here shortly. So here we go. All right, folks and family, as you can see, in fact, we're learning a couple things about this marker too. So the name is Stephen, S-T-E-P-H-E-N, last name Martin, M-A-R-T-I-N. We initially just spoke about the date of death being 1955. Through the cleaning, we're able to determine a month, which was April, which we see APRL right here on the left-hand side as you see it on the camera. So now we have the temporary marker raised, no longer buried. It was probably about 6 inches below the ground, and that's being conservative. We're going to have it documented. That's another one that we have, and then that is it, and we'll see you in the next cut. On to the next marker. All right, folks, we are back at Section 4, Oakland Cemetery, here at the temporary marker of an individual that is currently unidentified. What we're going to do is we're going to attempt to clean this. Sometimes what will happen when these markers are in the ground, depending on the type of material, they would just degrade over time, whether it be rust, nature, the legibility of it. In fact, we're going to find out here in a couple of minutes. Just like the one we had in the previous video, after a little bit of cleaning, we were good to go. Here, if rust comes through, you just kind of have to work with the equipment you have. So if the water and dirt, or excuse me, if the water and the brush doesn't work, a couple of options that you have, but we currently don't have ourselves, would be like effectively sandblasting the rust to see if we get some sort of information off that marker. But if anything, we'll have the temporary marker raised. It's actually depressed to the ground. In fact, you can probably see the depression in the ground, probably an inch or two below the ground. So that way there's no additional damage to the marker. The other thing too is if someone is aware of this marker in relation to where it is, they can identify that, hey, this was my loved one, and then in fact either one, replace it with the temporary marker, or a replacement temporary marker, or actually replace it with a headstone. All right, so here I'm going to get to some cleaning and we'll see what we can get. All right, friends and family, looks like we got a lot more detail than actually what I was expecting. I initially thought this whole plate would be rusted out as you see it. But basically, I'm going to spell out everything I see. I'm not going to speculate anything, so that way we'll try to see what we can find. So it's John, John, last name Moore, Moor. Now it could be Moore, Morrison. That's where the speculation comes in, but the four identifiable letters are Moor. We have a month here that's on your left-hand side is October and 1951. We're going to attempt to cross-reference what information we have, but other than that, this is actually a lot more information we were expecting, just because of how dirty this was. And if we find anything in the future, we'll let you know. Other than that, we will document this as well as we can. One, through Find a Grave, and of course, two, through this video documentation here. And we'll see you on our final marker. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back at Section 4 of Oakland Cemetery, as you've been following in this video. We had two temporary markers. We're on our third one for today. These individuals were located while we were doing our mapping of the cemetery, and by peer probing of this area with our metal probing tool, when we were looking for grave markers, we actually found a lot of temporary markers. So what we did is we identified it by putting a piece of PVC pipe in the ground, so that way when we had to come back to it, depending on what else we had going on in the cemetery, we came back to it. We have a plug of grass right here. Our goal is to basically identify the marker. So we'll identify the marker as is in the ground, so that way when we transfer it, if there's any damage while it's being transported, we at least have documentation of it. And then the other thing is, when we get the marker up, we'll shave about an inch off the plug. We'll recess the temporary marker back into the ground, and then clean the temporary marker up and go for full identification, and that should close us out. So I'm going to get to work, and here we go. So on the temporary marker, this is the thing we're talking about, shaving about an inch of this dirt off, so that way we can depress it in the ground accurately. It looks like we got a little friend here, a little cricket. So one thing you want to be careful about when you're operating near these temporary markers is that you don't disturb it. They are pretty strong and sturdy, but you never know what happens under the ground. So I'm going to attempt to get it through, and then I'll read any information I get to you. Alright, so we have our temporary marker right here. And what we can read right now, it's Roland L. Rutherford. Roland, R-O-L-A-N-D, L as in Lima, Rutherford, born 1956, passed away 1956. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep working this. We're going to set this to the side, and we'll definitely come back to it for some cleaning. We're going to remove our temporary pipe.
Sound like some clay.
Yeah, it's pretty dry. It's kind of good, kind of bad. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see on this temporary marker, there would be, and you have to look on our previous videos, there would be a stem that comes down from here, so that way it just sets in the ground. That is literally rusted through. So what we do is we have our temporary marker, we're going to set it level to the ground, or about an inch below, and then the next thing you're going to see here is we're going to get to some cleaning, so we'll see you in the next cut. Alright, so we're back at Mr. Rutherford's temporary marker. We have it inch below the ground. Once again, that's done because that way we can landscape around it, and also minimizes the risk of damage. So we're going to get to cleaning, and then as the details are revealed, you know, short of what you will see visually on the camera, we'll make sure we read it out to what we can see. As far as the first, middle, last name, and the other identifying dates or bits of information that we see. So here we go. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we're kind of at the conclusion of this marker in our video here with the temporary marker section, just for these final three. So the name that we have, and we'll also read off any information that we could not see initially. The name is Roland, R-O-L-A-N-D, middle initial L as in Lima, Rutherford, R-U-T-H-E-R-F-O-R-D. The date of birth and date of death is 1956 to 1956. This marker was by R. Hayden Smith. That's the funeral home. Usually you'll have a name that's on the bottom of the marker. That's by the funeral home that actually made the marker. Why do we bring that up? An important thing is that if all we had was the name and maybe a bit of information, we'll say the funeral home name, and a loved one wants to get a temporary marker, they can contact them with a little bit of information they have, and perhaps that's less homework that R. Hayden Smith has to do, because they deal with thousands, tens of thousands, just as well as any other funeral home has to deal with as far as the different names. So once again, we have Roland Rutherford, born and died in 1956. We have the temporary marker raised. It was probably about 4 inches out of the ground. A couple of the ones that we did before, even though that they were relatively newer, they were probably about 6 to 8 inches below the ground, but that just shows you the different types of terrain that we have to work with. Other than that, marker's good to go. Another raise and reset complete. Temporary marker found. We'll say well over, also since 1956, so you're talking about close to 80 years. And then actually, see if I did my math right here.
No.
Let's go about 70. Got Mr. Harmon behind the camera. Is going to help me out with the math.
Yeah, 56. Let's see. 56. 54. I was born in 54. I'd say about 57. I mean 67.
Oh, right about
68.
70 years. So
Yeah.
about 70, 72 years. 74. I didn't join for the math, but just kidding. So, but we got 1956 listed out here. If anything, we have some photo documentation of it, as well as this video. Other than that, that concludes another video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave it in the description below. And plus, if you see any details that maybe we missed, like, hey, I made out this letter, or I made out this year, vice that year, leave it in the comment section below, and we'll come back and do some research on that. And if you like what you're watching, just drop that like, give us a thumbs up on the video. And I just wanted to point something out. It may look like you have some growth here on the beginning of the name Roland. So we talked about the top plate and the bottom plate coming together. Because the roots were so ingrained into it, we didn't want to risk taking this apart to separate it, to clean it, and then put it back together. So we're going to keep it as is, and because it's above the ground now, maybe the sun would dry that out over time and it would get more clear. So we'll see you in the next cut, and you guys have a wonderful day.